go. All righty. So good evening and welcome to a new year and a new night for Hillsborough County Council PTA Facebook Live. As you notice, we're on a Thursday, no longer on a Wednesday. We have moved. We hope each of you have had a safe and happy holiday season and look forward to a new year that brings us hope with the release of a COVID vaccine. We recognize many things may never go back to the way it was. We hope that this past year has given us the opportunity to reflect on the most important people and priorities in our life. On a lighter note, sports in the area has given us reason to cheer with the Lightning, the Rays, and now the Bucks. And we are within a month of the Super Bowl in our hometown. But unfortunately, with all the pomp and circumstance that comes with the Super Bowl, an evil will also be more prevalent in the form of human trafficking. Studies show that the Super Bowl or any other large event that provides a significant concentration of people in a relatively confined urban area becomes a desirable location for a trafficker to bring their victims for the purposes of commercial sexual exploitation. So we greet all of our parents and our caregivers and our PTA officers. Tonight we will discuss the who, the what, the where, and the how about human trafficking. We will cover misconceptions, how to look for indicators and red flags, and what you can do about it as a community. I would also like to have our panel introduce themselves as we call upon them, and then we'll get started. We invite our listeners to use the chat to ask questions, and we'll do our best to set aside some time towards the end of the address. We also ask our listeners to share this on their Facebook pages to allow as many people as possible. This is absolutely not a PTA only event. This is a community effort, both in our community with the Super Bowl and then statewide. And with that, again, I welcome everybody to a new year. And I will also turn to our new school board chair, Lynn Gray.
Thanks, Frank Reyes, and thank you, PTA and Hillsborough PTA. It's my pleasure. We do, in fact, have experts on this panel. But just to back up, I am the Hillsborough County Public Schools chair. And in so doing, I cover a lot of territory in our district, which is, as we all know, the size of Rhode Island. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background. When we started the Human Trafficking Forum, which you'll meet the key people today, or tonight, I should say, I had began searching for ways to make our principals, our students, of course, more aware of the nefarious types of individuals who are really targeting our students for sexting and for being absolute predators. And so since I think it was last March when the COVID began, we've been meeting monthly, and we strive to not only share our resources and community concerns, but we also want to educate our principals and get our teachers informed so they can help students strategize. And in a nutshell, then just recently, and I have I just wanted to go through this little bit of script, but I did bring out an actual month, Human Trafficking Awareness Month, as far as a proclamation on the school board. So, but officially, the month of January is designated as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. So with that in mind, and with the upcoming Super Bowl, and us being the third in the nation of human trafficking, when I say we, our panel and graciously the PTA, Frank Reyes, we see the need to make sure our parents and our families are informed. So enough about all what I'm going to say. We have the experts. I'm delighted also to have a House Representative, Jackie Toledo, which is always a home run when we have, I mean, her heartfelt care for children is just unbelievable. And so she'll be in our corner as well. Frank, with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you continue this meeting.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight. We're excited. Ms. Capucci?
Hi, my name is Ashley Capucci. I'm the supervisor of physical education, health, and dance in Hillsborough County Public Schools. And I just want to thank you, Frank, for the opportunity for us to have this platform to speak about this issue tonight. So thank you, and thank you to the PTA.
Yes, thank you very much. Dottie Grover Skipper.
Yes, hi Frank, and hi everyone. Thank you for this honor of being on this panel. I have been in the trenches of human trafficking, I hate to admit, for over 40 years. And before there was even a label of human trafficking. And I recently retired as a Florida director of anti-trafficking for the Salvation Army, but I'm still heavy duty in the trenches working with a great organization called the No More Foundation, where we are very busy with Super Bowl outreaches coming up. And I recently rolled off the statewide council on human trafficking. I was appointed by the Attorney General, first Pam Bondi and then Ashley Moody, and served on that in that capacity for 6 years. And now I rolled off, and now I'm on the Hillsborough Commission on human trafficking, and still in the trenches working hard. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
Absolutely, our pleasure, my pleasure. Ms. Garrison.
Hi there, I'm Annie Garrison, and I reside in an all-volunteer organization, nonprofit, down here in the South Shore of the Tampa area. And we deal with human trafficking issues, and we focus a lot on domestic violence, because that is often the root that it makes kids and families vulnerable to human trafficking. I do serve on a few boards dealing with this, and I'm delighted to be part of this program, because you parents are really key. You have a strong influence on your kids, and I think this is an excellent platform that has been put together by the PTA. It's just delightful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Toledo.
Hi, thank you, and good evening. Thank you so much for having me on this panel today, and thank you, Lynn Gray and Dottie, for including me tonight, and all the parents out there. Thank you for watching, because this issue is so important, whether you've ever known of a victim or just want to learn more. The more we know, the more we can do something about it. Especially, it's critical because of Super Bowl coming up too. So I look forward to learning more. I'm not an expert in human trafficking, but I was appointed to the statewide council of human trafficking. I'm a state representative in South Tampa area. I was elected in 2016, and I have 5 children. So that is why I'm so focused on safety of children and families. So this is very important to me, and whatever I can do to prevent human trafficking, I will do, and I will be a champion for human trafficking. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I do not want to forget Maria, who's sitting there in the back. I can see her name, and she is such a wonderful help in getting many of these events put together. So Maria, thank you. I see your name.
Thank
she
you.
works in Ms. Gray's office. So, all right. So let's start out, because we don't want to keep everybody all night, but we definitely want to hit some important topics. Let's start out with probably the most basic question, and I'll add a little bit to it. Is what is human trafficking, and also what are some misconceptions of how we view human trafficking? I'll look at Ms. Gray, and then from there, anybody jump in. And you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, human trafficking it has many sneaky forms of it. And what happens, I think, is that children or students are very vulnerable targets, and basically it is they kind of get caught very in a sneaky kind of way, either by the texting, and they get groomed. They actually start forming a relationship, usually with an adult. And because many of our students, not unlike other districts, there is some self-esteem issues, and they become doubly vulnerable. We are reminded that places in South, as South County, Southeast County, and Annie Garrison shared South Shore, Ruskin, There are many roads that have no sidewalks and children are walking without escorts, or I should say guardians, parents. And sometimes it's kind of in the dark getting to school. So the idea of our students being targets for sex trafficking is real, and it's happening. But I'm going to let the expert, perhaps Ashley Capucci, can dive in with some more details.
Thank you. Yes, and on top of that, students, it can't just be adults. Students could also be forms of traffickers. Oftentimes, these pimps or people who are in charge of these groups that are grooming students or are young adults they often do this behind those digital platforms that our students are using, video games. So it's really important that we educate parents and guardians that to be aware of what your students are using, and just to know warning signs, any markings or tattoos, things like that come in different forms. And I know Dottie and Ann can speak more to this with their extensive research. So I'll allow them to go ahead and add on to that as well.
Well, Dottie, why don't you go next and I'll tag off of you.
Okay. I like to really simplify it as much as I can, that human trafficking is the business of the exploitation of vulnerabilities. And we all have vulnerabilities, and our students and our children also have vulnerabilities. So it's the business of the exploitation of those vulnerabilities that perpetrators and predators prey on those vulnerabilities. They build relationship either through texting, like Miss Gray has talked about, or Ashley online. They build relationship, and through building that relationship, they can discover what that child's vulnerability is and use that to continue to build a relationship and into a grooming kind of process. So I think it's, if you look at it that way, it's the business of the exploitation of vulnerabilities. Annie?
I'll tag on to that. It's what makes kids vulnerable and so forth. And some of that is bullying, and that often starts at a young age, because there's always a foundation before we ever get to be trafficked, to become a victim. And of course, I just want to add a couple of things. Most traffickers, it is economically driven, as Dottie just said. It is a big moneymaker. And they don't care about boundaries, ethnicity, what the race is, or anything, only if they can make money. And the most popular age group, unfortunately, which is why we're talking to you parents, is 16 and under. So you think about that. We all have these conceptions. It's only the women out in the street, supposedly. That is not so. The most popular selling of humans to humans, preying on humans, is the young adults. So back to vulnerability. One of the things I've discovered in working with human traffickers and so forth, from here in Florida and up in the Virginia area when I worked with the United Nations, is the fact of what is called bullying and domestic violence. We've all been exposed to it. We all have people who've been exposed to it. And bullying, it is a known fact that hardly a child gets through school, even starting as young as 5, without being exposed to bullying. This causes tremendous amount of stress on children. They're so involved in their appearance and being accepted. And when there's domestic violence added on that in a home situation, it's a push out. It's a push out where kids will reach out to other people for attention, to be accepted. And often that brings in, of course, the social media, which is actually something they'll talk about, I'm sure, in a minute. So I just wanted to always think about what I call the root. What's going on in the home life? What's going on at school? Are your children being under the influence of bullying? There's many kinds. Cyberbullying, sexual exploitation can be a form of bullying. What's modeled by the family? So I'll stop now. I've done more than I meant to say, but please make a note of that. All right. It's not pie in the sky. All right. It starts often right into your own family and your neighbors and your close people.
All right, thank you very much, Ann. You gave me a perfect segue to the next question, and I'm going to jump down a little bit. What you talked about those who are affected most. Can you give us additional groups that might be more affected than others? And that could be with gender, race, age, anything else.
Well, I
Yeah,
can,
oh,
oh, go
go
ahead, Dottie.
No, I was just going to say, I know there's a big rising, a lot of people, I think one of the myths is that it's only girls and women that get trafficked, but it's also boys and men. And women can also be a trafficker. I think people think it might be only males, but women can also be traffickers. What we're seeing is the LGBTQ community, when let's say a young person will come out to their parents and their parents kick them out of the house. And so they're on the street, and who is there to welcome them? Come into my family. And so it might be all rosy for a couple of weeks, and then the perpetrator turns into a perpetrator. And then they say, I'm keeping you, I'm feeding you. You have to go do this for me in order to earn your keep. So we're seeing a big rise in that community, and a rise in boys also being trafficked, along with kids in foster care. You know, I talked about the vulnerabilities. Well, it's not that it's the foster care system, but it's the vulnerabilities that placed a child in the foster care system is why the foster care system is, those children are prime targets, because they are looking for acceptance. You know, we all are looking for acceptance and
Sure.
want to belong. So, but again, it's those vulnerabilities.
And if I can just jump in real quick, and the ages now we're seeing is between 11 and 13 years old as well. But the COVID has taken the eyes of our teachers away when we do e-learning. So when, as a former teacher, some of you might know, we kind of kept an eye on the expressions of kids, and if they looked, you know, really overly sad or, you know, stressed or anxious, we would easily detect that and share it with the guidance counselor or talk to the child. But now with the e-learning, those signals are missed, and worse yet, they're home alone, and there are no parents home. So the COVID actually adds to another layer of vulnerability. And I wanted to throw that in too, because it's real. And every time we talk, remember what is it like to have a state of Florida being the third largest in the nation for this sex trafficking to occur. So we have to pay attention, because it is really happening.
Okay, anyone else? Ashley?
Yeah, I just want to keep in mind what Dottie said was huge and very important too. But as parents, as something just easy to remember, human trafficking doesn't discriminate. So it could be a child walking home and now you're vulnerable, or a van that passes at, you know, and they're luring the students in with candy or ice cream. So it doesn't discriminate. Again, we'll talk about later what we're doing to be proactive, but just knowing the warning signs, talking to your, you know, your student, and just helping them understand what is out there. But Dottie, you hit it right on the point. It's really targeting some groups, but anybody is, you know, vulnerable to be trafficked.
True.
I would just like to add as a tip that the parents might not be aware of, for the LGBTQ community for middle school and high school, there's a fabulous group called Glinson. And it actually is a national group, and it actually exists here in Tampa Bay area. And they have a great yearly summit. And also it's a good, safe place with a lot of strength that teachers use too, along with students, to feel more comfortable and work through some of the difficulties they have in dealing with harassment or even their own self-identification of their sexual gender.
Yeah. So one thing, and this is more of a statement, but it is a kind of a question, if anybody can answer it. I think as parents, as individuals, we sometimes don't stay current with issues, even in our own community, until they actually affect us in our own backyard. And I think sometimes we see things like human trafficking and think, well, this would never happen to my child, or I keep an eye on him, or and yet from what I'm hearing, this actually hit it. This doesn't discriminate. Does anybody want to add on to that at all? I want parents to I want to resonate with parents that this could be anybody, anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a high affluent area. It could be from North Tampa to South Tampa, from east and west.
You know,
And
there's two, yeah, there's,
No.
Jackie, did you want to say something?
I did, because this is one of the things that I learned through speaking to a human trafficking victim, is that, you know, there are recruiters that are their ages. There are 16-year-old recruiters, pimps, get these girls to get other girls. And before you know it, they're involved in human trafficking. So if you don't have these conversations with your kids about what is human trafficking, what does it look like? Do you have friends that have, you know, a lot of money or cash around, or new things like that? You know, keep your eye out. I know you're going to talk about red flags, but these peers that they have, you know, they, like Dottie said, they are preying and exploiting their vulnerabilities. So maybe they had a fight at home. Maybe your child didn't make good grades and you got upset with them. And now they go to their friend's house and their friend is making them feel really good and says, why don't you come with me? My boy, this is what other people have told me, how they got started and how they were human trafficked. So I think having these conversations with your kids so that they know the signs and what human trafficking is. So if it is, you know, presented to them, they know what to do.
Yeah, and I just wanted to jump in too, because with our HOPE classes, and I think Ashley can share, that's the health opportunities in physical education. It's like a life skills course, but many times parents don't talk about to their children about the realities of what's going on with human trafficking. And it's not because they don't want to, because, you know, it's not a topic that they don't think is relevant as compared to maybe drug usage and not catching the COVID and other hot topics. So we do have a curriculum, and this is one of the segues I'm going to let Ashley take part in. And Representative Toledo will probably help us put this in more schools, at least for a semester. But when we were looking at the HOPE class at Johnny Bush, Principal Bush, I was there Tuesday. And the kids, you know, the information they learn are parts of a conversation that parents don't usually have. And when we asked them about what they learned about human trafficking, any one of them could have been put on this panel and shared the signs, the strategies. I mean, they were informed children. And wouldn't we want all our children to be informed? Not scared, but informed. But perhaps, and Ashley, you feel free, or any of you, to talk about the HOPE class real briefly, you know, about
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Thank you, Mrs. Gray, and thank you, Mrs. Toledo, what you're doing, Representative Toledo, on helping us with the HOPE curriculum and HOPE course. And in our HOPE course, we've taught human trafficking for years, actually, when I first started in the district. So human trafficking has been part of our curriculum, and we know that there are some waivers that can happen with the HOPE course. And so we want to make sure that our students are with us, because they're not only learning those life skills, they're being physically active, but then also those health concepts that are really important, like human trafficking, substance abuse. We go into detail, into depth to educate, so students have the knowledge and skills to be advocates for themselves and others. And so I'm very passionate about that course. But I'll kind of segue for Frank, and I don't know if I'm stepping on your shoes a little bit to answer a question, but I'll talk about, we do have a state mandate, a state required instruction mandate for K through 12 education for child trafficking education. And so we, as a district, K through 5, we teach child safety matters through the Monique Burr Foundation. And in 6th through 8th, we teach the teen safety matters through the Monique Burr Foundation. In 9th grade, we kind of break off because this is an area where that course is in depth with a lot of tough topics, from mental health to, again, I repeated, the substance abuse. And we talk about topics where our teachers are trained and they know how to answer and kind of refer students to help and care if they need. So we teach the chosen curriculum, which is brought to us by Shared Hope. And then back in 10th through 12th grade, we go back to the Monique Burr Foundation for the Teen Safety Matters, and that's taught through social studies. The topics are from, and I know Annie has mentioned this several times, but the cyberbullying, the bullying, digital abuse, digital citizenship, and safety tips, spotting red flags. And I just wanted to show you this. I know it's small, but each of your students will take these home, and we have resources for parents and students, and we'll also be posting this on our website. But these are the 5 safety rules we teach them K through 12. You know, knowing what's up, knowing how to spot what's happening, and then eventually take action. So that's where it goes into spotting those red flags. Make a move if they have to. How do they report? And then talk it up. Find a safe adult that you can talk to, or a safe person at the school site that you can talk to. And then we also teach them the last safety rule: no blame, no shame. If it's happened to them, they're not to blame, they're not to shame for it, but now it's time for us to find help for them. So we keep this, these 5 safety rules K through 12. We're very proud, but you'll be looking for these resources. They'll be coming home to you and your families through our physical education teachers. And then in, again, in the 10th through 12th grade, they'll be coming from your social studies teachers. So we're very excited about the Monique Burr Foundation curriculum and the chosen curriculum, and to get these resources out to you, parents, and to educate our students.
Thank you very much. Before I move on, does anybody have anything else to add? That was great stuff. Thank you, Ms. Capucci. I first of all, the rules here are we have no rules. So anything that comes up in your mind, talk about it. And if we have to say it 5 times, that's fine, because people are popping in and out anyway. We want to make sure they get that information. So thank you very much. Don't ever just go. So
well, with that permission, I just want to say to Ashley, extremely important point that parents need to hear, and that their children or students need to know, is to find that one trusted adult that they can go to. It might not be a family member, it might be a guidance counselor, you know, but to find that one trusted adult that they can have open communication with without judgment, crucial.
Thank you, Dottie. I do want to add in real quick too, as parents are listening to this, our teachers who are delivering this instruction cannot deliver it until they're trained. So they go through extensive training, and I've made it my mission that they get training each year. And so this past year, through our professional study day, they got additional training, and then they were allowed to take more training if they wanted to in-depth detail. But each of them have to be a trained facilitator of this curriculum before it's even launched to your students.
And also parents have to give their consent, at least for the Hope class. So parents are aware of what's being taught, at least the subject areas. But you know what, I was curious, and Frank, this is something just as a listener to the panel, what are the signs? I know I mentioned in a vague way, anxiousness. What are the absolute signs that parents can look for?
Why don't I jump in for just to get it kicked in and everyone can add? Some of the signs to watch in adolescent behavior is a change in behavior, loss of interest in their friends, their families, spending a great deal of time in their room with their tablets, computers, or cell phones, Those are things to look for. A change in appearance, diet are key. Substance abuse, it goes together. We haven't talked a lot about drug addiction, but it can start at a very young age. New friends, new clothes, more expensive clothes. These are things to look for too. More than one cell phone? Wow, that's a biggie. Why do we have more than one cell phone? How is that phone used? And I'll stop and I'll let Dottie and others add some more signs to look for.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Annie. And, you know, if your child or your student suddenly comes home with like a Coach purse or, you know, expensive jewelry or expensive shoes, those kind of things, that's a sign. Has an older boyfriend or an older girlfriend, that's a sign. One thing that we're hearing from law enforcement in regard to tattoos, you know, so many people have tattoos, but there is, you know, traffickers typically will brand their product, for lack of a better term, and look for barcodes. A lot of times there'll be barcodes on the neck or somewhere, you know, on the upper body, a crown, or a word like daddy, or a man's word, or a male word. But what law enforcement is telling us that they're finding now is the Roman numeral number 16. And the Roman numeral number 16 stands for the number 16. 16 is the letter of the P is the 16th letter of the alphabet, and P stands for pimp. So if you see Roman numeral number 16, then that is a big red flag. So I thought that was interesting. And even with the barcodes, law enforcement, some of them are actual barcodes. You can scan your phone over the barcode behind their neck and a price comes up. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
I think too, our administrators have been aware of students missing school or leaving home, going to a different state with a friend, a boyfriend. You know, we've had cases where this has been reported by a parent, and we've been able to bring the student back home safely because of the education our administrators are getting with that student's not just missing school to miss school, something's not right. And so spotting that red flag is huge.
Wow, there was I wrote most of those down, and I didn't even think of some of those. And obviously the 16 is brand new to me. Older boyfriend or girlfriend, more than one cell phone. I mean, these are definitely indicators. Anything else at all on that? I think those are.
Yeah. On the cell phone, on the cell phone, hiding apps behind apps, and you can do that. So it will hide whatever information they're trying to hide behind another application, and that's where it all is, and that's where, you know, communication can happen. And a lot of times students are lured that way through these applications.
Yeah, and you know, I was just thinking, I was looking at Jackie with 5 kids, and I'm ever so mindful. I thought when my son was growing up, and he stayed in his room quite a bit, and we didn't know that was the beginning of a computer addiction. But now, you know, he did get addicted, so to speak, to these games. But Jackie, do you notice any, I mean, my goodness, you have so many experiences with your children. Would you notice anything different?
So while you were saying all these things, like spending a lot of time in the room, I'm like, oh, that's my kids. They're
Yeah.
all like that. And that's like, but they're doing different things. But I think one of the things that I heard you say is be mindful what's on their phone. And, you know, my daughter doesn't, you know, give me her phone, like, here, mom, check out my phone, my 15-year-old, you know, but willingly, but I, you know, sneak in her room at 3 a.m. and take the phone and do all that stuff, but also going through the phone bill. You know, we all pay for the phone bill. So we can see if there have been calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, who are they? You know, let's do some investigative work there. But it is tough, but just keep monitoring who their friends are. Like you said, if they have new friends, older friends. You know, my daughter's 15, so she just had her first friend that has a car. I'm having
Oh,
a
scary.
meltdown. I need to have a therapy session with other moms that have kids, but there are bigger issues that, you know, you have to be in on top of now. And it is scary for me. That's why I'm out here trying to advocate for the prevention of human trafficking.
I might add, I agree with everything said. This is exciting. I'm learning things too. But I might add theft. If your child is all of a sudden started stealing or gets picked up and the police call you over a theft, there may be more behind that. There may be a lot of pressure, peer pressure, or a trafficker or a grooming where they want to have that attention. So they'll do things that they normally would not do. So those are things to think about too. That's a form of, we're talking about change in behavior. Is that something you're seeing all of a sudden? Gee, I thought I had more money in my wallet, or gee, where'd that money go on the counter or on the dresser? Or you get this famous call, what do you mean at Walmart? You got my son or my daughter? What's that about? So you need to unravel a little further change in behavior like that.
I want to jump in
yeah,
too,
go ahead.
you know, and much younger children, like young elementary age, you know, maybe if stuttering suddenly starts or bedwetting, those kind of things that could indicate that there's some trauma going on. You know, not necessarily trafficking, but those would be things that younger children might do if they are, you know, traumatized in any way, shape, or form.
You know, that's a really good point. I'm going to add to that, Dottie. I haven't met a trafficked female yet. It's harder to get boys to identify that they're trafficked, that has not been sexually exploited at a young age, usually by a family member or someone close to the family. So none of us should be naive that some of this may be perpetuating in your own home through individuals that you feel that they or thought they had trust in, and they soon find out that they're being hurt and no one will listen. And that's almost a different topic in some ways, but it's kind of, again, that root, that domestic abuse, emotional, physical.
That's true. Familial trafficking is huge. You wouldn't think that it's huge, but it is. Even 40 years ago when I started in this, that's how I, you know, found out about it. It was a grandmother trafficking her 13-year-old and her 4-year-old sisters. And that was my foray into this world 40 years ago. And it's still prevalent today, familial trafficking. So we can't just teach our kids stranger danger anymore. It's beyond stranger danger, because most of the time they're not strangers who perpetrate.
They're not strangers. Yeah, and I was just getting into soon, I think, Frank, the precautions, what are we doing? And when you mentioned trauma, you know, I'm piloting one of the schools for teachers to be trained with dealing with traumatized students. In other words, the strategies to try to help them share those experiences. Of course, there's academics, but now teachers are going to be trained, and I know Ashley can speak on this more and more, to not only pick it up, those signs, but also to know what resources to send the child to. And I think probably later on we will get into what precautions can parents look for or know that we're going to do. But I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yep. And when we send the information kits home to the parents and students, this little flap opens up. There's a bunch of help hotlines in here for students. They also have a bookmark that you may see them bring to you, because they may be asking you to be their safe adult. And so they're just going to have that with you. So maybe you come up with a code word, or this is just something that's part of the education. And then you also get a fact sheet about what they learned for that day. So then you know what education's happening in the classroom. And I know there's a couple questions in the chat that I'd like to answer. It says K through 12, you say it's being taught in Hillsborough County Public Schools. Yes, since last year we've been teaching it, and it's in our K through 9, it's in physical education. The reason why is those physical education and health standards are married. So a lot of them are closely related or embedded within each other, so we can meet the needs of our students, especially particularly in that HOPE course. Our teachers are trained in health certified. And so they are able to, you know, obviously with the topic, meet the needs of the students, send them to the right support, and then they know how to deal with trauma if the student does come and report to them. Also, another question that's been asked in the chat. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going way off. In 10th through 12th grade, it's social studies. So that is that question. And then how do you find hidden apps behind apps? You will have to Google the site, the device that your student has. For example, Android, specifically Androids, they have the ability to hide apps. And so there's a whole thing. If you just Google how to hide apps behind apps, it will bring up different devices, show you what's happening, and also be aware of the search engines your students are using, Safari, Google, because you can have privacy screens on those. And so if you're using an iPhone, same thing, you can open up a privacy screen, and a lot of that, it's not just an application, it's actually an online tool that can have a hidden chat behind it. And they can erase a lot of that. So it's just being aware of what devices that your student may be using, and just knowing how to look for those things. And we'll be happy to help you if you need help. My name is Ashley Capucci. I'll sit down and with you and show you those things. I'm a tech geek too, for those who don't know, and just help you with that, because we're all here for students and we want all of your students to be safe.
Can I just add one more thing before we go on? I'm sorry, Frank.
Of course you
but
can. Absolutely.
Video games are huge too. And now, with video games now, you can chat. There's chat features where you can talk to someone even in another country. And there have been cases where kids have been lured by chatting, building friendship online with someone playing a video game, and then they decide to meet in person, kind of like what happens online. And there was a big case in St. Pete 2 or 3 years ago where that's exactly what happened. A kid from Alabama was chatting with someone here in St. Pete, and he ended up coming to St. Pete to meet this man, and he and a friend ended up being sex slaves to 4 men that lived in that house for a year until it was discovered, and finally they were arrested and got help for those 2 teenagers. So just parents, beware of who your kids are talking to in the video games.
And I think it's important to have that conversation. We know that Fortnite, Roadblocks, you can have those questions even in Among Us. Those conversations can happen. And so me as a parent, I sign up for those games too, because I want to know what's being said. I want to know, can my child have a private server that they can play only with friends they know of, so that conversation's safe. So just know how to navigate those things and what's out there. But all of those game systems do have conversation tools. For example, Roblox does block any explicit communication. Same with Among Us. You can get pretty explicit on there. It can be pretty scary. So just be aware that those games do have differences. And Fortnite, again, that's open communication and open to anybody on the online world. But just awareness is huge.
You guys are just, you're knocking it out of the park tonight. I really appreciate it. So much great information. And Ashley, I appreciate you taking those questions. I was going to ask them, but you got to them first, which was better because I was just going to ask you anyway, the answer. So you saved me. But I did want to thank Brandy Ludlam for that question, and Katie Murphy's out there listening. Thank you all for being part of that and asking those questions. Again, if you're just joining us, we are with an esteemed panel talking about human trafficking. We're talking about it not only because it's an issue every day, but because with the Super Bowl, it becomes more prevalent. If you have questions, this is the time to ask. we have a great group who can give you those answers. I do see another question. I'm not so sure if it's a question, but I'll read it, and I'm sure you guys see it. My son, this is from Brandy again. My son took Hope last year online, does not recall learning about it. I see Ashley shaking her head. You want to answer that one?
Yeah, that's why we're really trying to keep our students here in Hillsborough County with us face to face. If they took it in another sector like, Florida virtual, the curriculums won't look the same. And so we know we can control what's in our brick and mortar. And so that might be the reason why your son did not receive the HOPE curriculum for human trafficking last year.
All right. And Dottie, you brought up something at the very end, though. I'm so glad you brought it up because it's something we kind of brushed against, and that was video games. And I don't know too many kids who don't enjoy video games. And now there's an opportunity for human trafficking through that, which is important. So is there anything on that more, because I know you spoke on it just a couple minutes, that you can think of for our parents?
Yeah, I think Ashley kind of tagged on that really, really well. Might even be more well versed than I on that. I have 7 kids, but they're all grown. So, we don't have video games in our house anymore. So I just really, what I learned is from law enforcement, but I think Ashley covered it very well.
And I would just like to add, based on Dottie's wonderful description of the exploitation of vulnerabilities, that could be one of your kids' vulnerabilities, that they love video games and you don't buy any of the points or whatever, Roblox or whatever. They can be lured like this because they want those Roblox so badly. So a vulnerability doesn't have to be one thing. It could be many things. So think about your child's vulnerabilities.
Good point.
I'm so glad you said that too, because in these games like Roblox, they can meet other people, and oftentimes it's innocent and friends are trading different items in that game. But sometimes if you have, like when my child first started playing it, she said, somebody's giving me this and that. And I said, do you know that person? No, then you're not going to accept that, because I gave you this, and then it turns into this constant conversation. If you don't know them, we're not talking to them. So it's having those conversations with your child so they understand that's not a safe practice at that time until they can really fully understand what the trade is and what it means, or how it can pigeonhole them into this relationship now, which could be exposing them their vulnerability to that person.
I'd like to add a little bit on social media, and if you don't mind. And video games are key because you can chat, but there's other games that are other apps that are easy to chat on. Also, Instagram. One app that I'm very concerned about now is Pornhub. I just discovered that one of the families that we were helping, the mother was absolutely shocked when we showed her daughter's cell phone and her sons. They were 13 and 14. They both had Pornhub on it. It's kind of like the in thing. It's kind of like it's exciting, but it is so risky for a number of things. So the key thing, and I mean, I could start listing all sorts of apps, but I'm not, because we don't have time. But the key thing is, hey, ask your kids, show me your apps. And why do you like to use them? And do it in a positive, upbeat way. And see what they show you. And why is this fun? And how often? I mean, there's lots of ways you can look at this to sort of understand more besides getting on. And yes, there are ways to block apps. They can also block you, parent. And that is not uncommon. Oh, I didn't realize I did that. But they'll block you for like a chit chat and Instagram or Ask Me. And some of those are very dangerous. And cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, I mentioned it earlier, and I think some others did too. It is rampant. It is so destructive. So talk to your kids about that. Are you on an app that does that? Are you on an app that so you can share like Whisper, which is terribly dangerous? I have to look at my little fancy dancy list here. House Party, where you can pick and choose who you like best. AirDrop, which is not an app. That is totally standalone, as you all know. It can be extremely, make children and teens vulnerable. So I'll stop right there because we could go on forever about different types of apps. They change all the time, by the way. Change all the time.
I just wanted to add one thing that I learned a couple years ago, and you guys probably all know this, but screen time, it's part of your Apple phone. If you don't know it, if you're a parent and you share a phone with your kids, which most of us pay for our kids' phone, you can actually stop their how long they're on the phone. You can see what apps they're on, not like what they're doing on the app, but how long they're on an app like TikTok and Snapchat, and see what kind of apps your kids are primarily on. And it's embedded in every single Apple phone. So I don't, if you didn't know that, I'm not very tech savvy. So someone else, an 18-year-old taught me about this.
Those are all great, ideas and things to look for. Again, it's so, as a parent, I guess, I kind of feel bad for, or I'm not sure if I feel bad for my parent or feel better for my parent because they didn't have to deal with a lot of this with us as kids. But anyway, just so much to look for. But I guess as a parent, that's, it's due diligence, and that's what we signed up for. I did want to kind of, because we have just a few minutes, I did want to hit a couple things. And I know we had one person who asked this question, and that is, what reference material can we get to help educate parents and students? That was from Orlando Goodwin. Do we have anything, Ashley?
Yeah, I just dropped the link in the chat, and that's directly with the Monique Burr Foundation. If you stay on their site, and hopefully we can get that to the parents. If you stay on their site, they also offer courses, and they all offer things for parents every now and then. So when you go onto their site and you click on learn more, there's resources, research. You can even take an online training here. And it's just a wonderful website that provides you with a plethora of information. And also your students will be bringing home what they've learned, and help hotlines and resources for you to have as well. And we'll house them on our district website as well.
Ashley, could I just say too that there's for much younger kids, younger elementary students, because a lot of resources are out there for middle school, but for young elementary school kids, there's I think the website is called My Body Safety Box. I think that's the name of the website, but I'm not sure. But it's just great information, age appropriate for younger kids. My Body Safety Box. So you can probably Google that. I'm not sure if that's the name of the website or not, but I know that's the name of the curriculum that they use.
You're right, it is.
Yeah. And also our principals are now, because of, we had a huge Sheriff Chad Cronister PSA public service announcement today, but our sheriff is actually having undercover agents to be looking out for predators during the Super Bowl, but he is very aware and he's working with our schools and our principals to make sure that they're all giving the awareness, so to speak, packages for teachers. And so, we're doing much better. A year ago, I would have said, no, there were principals had no, there was nothing out there, and certainly parents were not even aware. But anyway, there's a question just about, do we have an actual number of the amount of kids who are missing? And I don't have that answer, but maybe one of the panelists does.
Yeah, I was just looking at my notes. I don't know. I don't have, I don't want to give a wrong statistic. I don't have anything specific to Hillsborough County. Annie, I don't know if you do or not. I don't want to give a wrong number.
No, I don't. I could just add that I'm more interested often, besides it's a horrible number the last time I heard it, but it's outdated. And that was over 100,000 missing children here in the Tampa area, but that is outdated. I'm more concerned about, those are ones we know about. The ones that really bother me are the ones that we don't know about. Missing children that simply are not on the radar screen is a big concern. But I also want to add, and that's a good question, and we could probably
Great
get the answer
question.
for you. I do know that domestic violence due to COVID that Lynn Gray brought up, which was a key point, has doubled in my area, and I'm sure it's true all over the United States. We have more and more problems with abandoned families and children right now due to COVID. Also, back to the social media resource, one I really like, and it's a simple thing to remember, is Common Sense Media. It has all sorts of great tips that you might consider. One of the things that we do here, because we work with such a large Hispanic population, is we try to have things done in Spanish. So when I go to teach about apps and all, I either have someone there to interpret for me because I don't speak Spanish, but I certainly have all my handouts in Spanish to help the parents understand the prolific amount of apps that are out there.
Perfect. And again, just keep sharing that information as you get it. I see a lot of people, including Amy, and then I know Ashley's done it. Just keep putting that information in chat so we can share it to our listeners. I did want to kind of finish off with something very important. As you all know, we kind of direct this Facebook to our PTA officers, our PTA parents, our caregivers. We also like to have our community in this, which we're doing it tonight. But for our PTAs, what are some solutions? What are some things? What are some first steps that we can take as PTA officers, as caregivers in our community and in our schools?
Well, I think one of the greatest things you can do is what you're doing tonight. If every PTA, every school PTA could have an awareness event for parents, I think that's education. As you know, knowledge is power. So the more education that we can provide to our parents and our teachers, the better. I think it should become like a mandatory talk, just like we do with the drug talk and the sex talk. It should become a mandatory talk that parents have the tools to feel as comfortable as possible talking about this. So I think that's a great first place to start. I know in a couple of schools a few years ago, I don't know if they're still there, there were actually anti-trafficking clubs that students formed. And I don't know if those are still in existence or not, but I think that might be something great, you know, to form clubs in every school, anti-trafficking clubs.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful idea. I know Colleen Carr at Shields Middle School, South County, has a club, very big awareness, but campaign. But the guidance counselors are being, and this goes to Ashley, are being more and more involved with helplines and such things. But you know, again, we are relying on the parents and wonderful organizations like the PTA to get to the parents the awareness. And I think what you're doing right now, and I agree with Dottie, is essentially, you know, this is the grassroots of sharing. We will be better and very much more strong in our schools because of I have such great resources as Ashley Capucci and our forum. Ms. Garrison and Dottie Grover Skipper. And now we have a big champion in the legislative, which is Jackie Toledo. So, you know, I think we're starting. And Frank, we have to thank you for starting the ball of awareness in the family sector. So.
I would just add one idea that PTAs could do, Frank and everyone, is each school has a tech lab. Even in elementary, you got teachers. Ashley knows this, is perhaps that they would be willing to give a presentation to the PTA of how to work your cell phone, what's on it, how do you control your apps, and just do a one-on-one, because I find many parents have no clue.
True.
Really get into understanding the deep dive into all the apps, and technical people that I see in the schools, they're really good at that. It'd be wonderful if they could do a lab or something for all parents of each separate PTA at a school.
I have a quick question for some of the administrators if they're on the phone. In the bathrooms, girls' bathrooms, boys' bathrooms, are there any, like anything about signs of human trafficking? Do we have any education on that? Like in the stalls or anything?
Yeah, I told Ashley to order away. We have, I mean, Annie, didn't you give me the posters and then I gave it to Ashley to order so we could have it in every restroom? How's that going, Ashley? Did we move on that? Because our budget, given that it is, but
We get
on
the
that.
free posters from the foundation, the Monique Burr Foundation. So those will be going up, but we will put them in the restrooms. We didn't even think about that. So right now you'll see banners out at the schools, but the posters going in the restrooms, I think that's clever. And that would
Yes.
really be wonderful. And then once, you know, like Mrs. Gray alluded to, once we remain our budget, we'll do the posters that Annie had sent us as well.
And
And put those up. Even I think maybe if we just print them out in black and white, maybe we can do Annie's as well.
Yeah, and we need to just get started. So thanks, Jackie, for that. I actually wanted that to be done, and Ashley's writing it down. So we're on it. So yeah.
Annie,
absolutely.
were the posters you sent the same, like that was developed by the Plant High School student for her Girl Scout Gold Award?
That's a great poster.
It's a great poster.
Yeah, I had 2 or 3 I sent along with some other things, the bookmarks we use, the little cards we use for teachers. I can't really remember, Lynn, what I sent you at the time, but that is a great poster. We have,
It's in the Florida Department of Education's Human Trafficking Toolkit. You have to
Yeah.
download it and print it. So it's a printing cost. And
right.
a lot of color in that poster. So
Daddy, I think it was you that sent it to me. You sent
yeah,
me the
I
poster.
did. I
And
did.
then I sent it to Ashley. Okay, yeah. So for
Or we both could have
you
sent it
didn't
because we
lose
used
your mind.
that one too. So,
Yeah.
So I'm going to go off script just for a moment, and I'm going to put Ms. Toledo on the hot seat. We've talked about what we can do in our communities, what we can do our PTAs, our schools. And this, I guess, is a question more for Ms. Toledo, but you can answer it as well. What are some things at the state level that are either in the process or things that we can kind of kickstart?
so in the last couple years, what we've done for victims of human trafficking is expunging their records so that they can move on from being a victim. A lot of them had criminal records, and we were able to help them. In fact, I have a volunteer from my campaign who told me her story, and she was inspired by me and became an engineer as well, but she was a victim of human trafficking. So I've learned a lot from her, but that's something that we have done in the past, and that was focused on the victim. However, we need to focus on prevention. So, and that goes through education. So it will be having the financial resources to, whether it's posters or stickers or things like that, to get that education throughout the state of Florida. And like we are talking about in the HOPE classes, making sure that no student could exempt from the HOPE class. I understand that it's called, health opportunities and physical education. And if you're an athlete, you are already, taking a lot of physical education, but there's so much more in these HOPE classes that children need to be exposed to, like human trafficking and vaping and other potential risks that everyone needs to be exposed to. You don't know what parents are talking to their children about. So those are just a couple different legislative issues. I will be meeting with the Lieutenant Governor next week to talk about something, ideas, just in general, not to break any sunshine laws, but I will just be meeting with them to talk about what has been done in the past. And also with our Attorney General to talk about what we can do. So, I will take as much information and keep moving forward so we can prevent human trafficking from happening.
Thank you. I don't want to forget, Katie's been an amazing person in our chat tonight. So I guess she's in Seminole County. She says there's a coffee shop, and hopefully I say this right, the Palais, I'm guessing, that is run by formerly trafficked women and staffed by volunteers with profits going to relief for formerly trafficked persons. So that is in a terrible issue, that is a little bit of bright light there. So thank you, Katie, for sharing that. We appreciate it, and we appreciate all your questions you've asked. Like I said, we're kind of up against the clock. I want to make sure everybody can spend time with their families tonight, but I want to kind of go through real quick and everyone take maybe 20, 30 seconds and anything that you feel needs that wasn't covered or needs to be emphasized, please go ahead. Ashley, you want to just start us off?
Sure. I would like to just say, don't let the word human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking scare you. The best thing is to educate yourself so that you can be aware and help our youth not be victims of this horrible, ongoing, money making. It's just horrible. But just don't be afraid. A lot of times we do get calls at the district since the mandate passed for our younger students that they don't want it to be called that. But it is what it is. And if we call it something else, then again, we're going away from educating our students about the truth. We want them to know the truth. So I would love to just share that with you all. And we're here not to put ideas in your students' head, but just to educate them so they have the knowledge and skills to protect themselves and be safe, and then leverage their parents and talk with their parents about these issues, because we know that together, with education and with our parents, we're better together.
Thank you. Let's go to Miss Grover Skipper.
Yes, one thing we didn't bring up tonight is if you do see such suspicious activity, what do you do? What do you do with that? So we haven't talked about calling the National Human Trafficking Hotline, or if it's a minor, the 1-800-96 abuse hotline for kids. And you can call both of the hotlines anonymously. You don't even have to give your name. So for minors, it's 1-800-96 abuse. And the National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. And we could probably put that in the chat
Sure.
too. So I think that's important for parents to know. And never, if you do see something, never try to intervene yourself. If it's, with a trafficker and a victim, never try to physically intervene yourself. You can call 911 too, or call those other two numbers.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you getting to that. That was definitely something I had written down the question, and then with time it kind of got away. So I appreciate you remembering that one. Ms. Garrison.
Yeah, I'll add just a couple of things in summary. There's just so much information given here, and I'm glad it's going to be YouTubed. But also, most of your sheriff police departments now have human trafficking divisions. So be fearful of calling and sharing that you have a suspicious something going on in your neighborhood. You don't feel right about a young child, his activities. Give the call, because you could save a life. I want to stress again, I brought it up at the very beginning, bullying. I'd like to have all parents talk about that topic, and because it is covered well in schools, but there's always room for more improvement. Talk about it, what it means for their child, get the conversation going. And then I just can't stress enough, because it's the new rage, because it's cheap, it's fast, the use of social media to recruit and groom. Oh my gosh, it's the way to go. We buy everything else on social media. Heck, just think about it. You can buy humans too. So I want parents to become much more savvy about their child's use of all the platforms, all the apps that can be found on. There's some really great ones. I'm not saying that this is not, we all use it, but there's some really nasty stuff out there. And is there key source, pardon me, for any of their activities, because it's just so easier to do it that way. And everybody's using it. They don't have to go find you on the street. I mean, that does happen, but most of it's done by social media now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you were earlier the one that mentioned about the barcodes on the people that they can scan. That was such a visual that kind of hit me. It's kind of irked me a little bit. So it's just difficult. Representative Toledo.
Yes. Thank you. And I apologize for going off for a second. My kids thought it ended at 7:30, so they've been blowing up my phone. So I had to, I know, and I'm like, give me 15 more minutes. No, I wanted to just tell everyone my office is always open. If you want to send me an email, it's jackie.toledo@myfloridahouse.gov. And my phone number for my office is 813-281-5549. And I'll put that in the chat as well, so you can have that. But if you have any ideas or a story you'd like to share with me about human trafficking offline, please let me know. And a suggestion that someone told me, I haven't seen it yet, but if you wanted to learn more about how kids are trafficked, the Epstein documentary, they said was really good to learn about how it happens. And apparently it's real, like this is really happening. So that's someone else told me about that. But just my office is always open, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for making time for us. We appreciate that. And Ms. Gray.
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Reyes and the PTA and all the panelists. And just know that as a school board member, the number one priority we have is the safety of your children. And human trafficking is something that obscures that greatly. So just also be aware that education, as you well know, is the best way of keeping our children safe. And we will be continuing educating our principals, our staff, and teachers, even the custodians, the bus drivers, all the way down the line, to keep your children safe. And there's never, every one of us are very accessible. And should you have any other questions, I know that myself and I think we have all our contact information. Please feel free to contact us, and do share the information with your neighbors, and not to scare them, but just to keep your children and their children safe. And golly, check those cell phones and social media as well. Thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Absolutely. It was absolutely my pleasure to have all of you on here. I'm so thankful. It was such a learning experience for me as well. And I try not to get in the way too much of each one of you. So I'm appreciative. I think the one thing I've learned is this issue, we think it's a worldwide issue, sometimes even in other countries, third world countries. But I mean, it's literally in our backyard, in our neighborhoods, in our schools. And we have to be cognizant of that, and realize that it could be any of our kids in the next room that are dealing with through our cell phones, social medias, video games. So it's a scary thing, but it's good to hear that and to recognize the issue first. So thank you all for bringing that to light. PTA is all about sharing information. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but we try our very best to talk about the issues that are important, that are relevant, and bring on the right people to talk about that. And I think we did. I'll give myself a little accolade to say I think I chose the right people tonight, but you all did an amazing job. I'm so thankful as not a PTA president, but as a parent for the time that you gave tonight, in informing us and educating each one of us tonight. And I'm thankful for everyone who posted online with the chat and with questions and with a lot of the resources. Together, sharing this information is the first step. And so with that, I